In 2018, Michigan voters elected a new governor, Gretchen Whitmer. In its new series, Inside Michigan Government, the Michigan Advance will be sitting down and talking to leaders of key state departments about what they do, as well as problems and solutions for Michigan.
My name's Heidi Washington. I'm the director of the Michigan Department of Corrections. I am actually born and raised here in East Lansing, Lansing area, East Lansing, Michigan. Went to East Lansing Public Schools, did my undergrad at Michigan State, went to Cooley Law School, and have worked for the department for 21 years. I was always interested in criminal justice and crime and those types of things, and that's why I wanted to go to law school, because I actually started out wanting to be a prosecutor. And so I had the opportunity to come here in the Department of Corrections, and I did that, but my mind was set on I will go to law school and then, I'll go pursue that. However, once I got here, I did go to law school while I was working here in the Department of Corrections. I went to school at night and on the weekends, but I never left here because I found the work here very rewarding, very satisfying. I loved the department, really was learning a lot every single day, and after I got my law degree, I was already settled here and I never wanted to leave, and so I'm still here after 21 years. I think, the opportunity to have an impact on people's lives, the opportunity to see what you're doing, really how it affects not only the people in this department, but the people in this state. And obviously, as I grew in my career, the work that I did I could see that more directly, as I advanced in the department. We're always changing and evolving as a department and as people. And I've seen a lot of culture change in this department through my roles as warden and through my role as director. And I think you're seeing that nationally, across the states and throughout the country, is how we look at criminal justice and our approaches to criminal justice. And what do we want out of a Department of Corrections? I think historically, when you look back at incarceration and how we've incarcerated people and why we've incarcerated people, things are different today, and people's views on that are different. What's also different is the amount of research that's available in the world about treatment, about programs, about the effectiveness of those things, and about the effectiveness of incarceration. And so I think as we continue to educate ourselves, we do change our views. I think it's important that we continue to educate our staff, because while we've had great results in this department in terms of the things that we measure, like our prison population and recidivism and those types of things, our population hasn't dropped because we're not holding people accountable, because we do. You still have to hold people accountable. But what I talk to staff about is, we're here for public safety. We're here to ensure that the public is safe. And the way we do that in the short term is by running safe and secure prisons and holding people accountable. But that's only temporary, because, the majority of people are going home. 98% of people are going to return home. So what we really need to be concerned with on a day-to-day basis is how we achieve long-term public safety. And that is by making the time that we have with people meaningful and impactful in a way that helps them transform their lives. And that's what I think we're about in this department today in 2019. We're always changing and growing, and so we'll soon be releasing our next strategic plan. We had a strategic plan 5 years ago. We just completed that period. We published a progress report, which reported on all the things we'd accomplished, and I'm very proud of that document, because it's pretty remarkable when you look at the progress we've made as a department. And so we sat down last year at sort of towards the end of the year and thought about where we want to go now and what's our roadmap and how are we going to get there. And so that document will soon be being published, and it's pretty aggressive, I think, and pretty ambitious. I think it takes us to a whole nother level. There's broad concepts like becoming a trauma-informed department, and that's one that I'm particularly excited about. And I think, when you talk about, like we talked about changing the culture and, how do we incarcerate people and, those sorts of things. 10 years ago in my career, I would have not thought that the department would have a goal or objective, becoming a trauma-informed department. What does that even mean? And how does that apply to us? But again, with all the research that's out there, and there's a lot of it out there, and we've been now training our staff in trauma, and that's also one of the goals, because once we understand that the men and women that we come into contact with have most likely been exposed to trauma at least once, but probably multiple times in their lives, that is associated with how they got to prison, and it impacts how they respond to us, how they do their time, and how we interact together. And so I think it's very important for us as a department to really educate ourselves about that, again, so that we can have better interventions and have better outcomes and understand the reasons why somebody behaves the way they do. So if I give you a ticket for the behavior you've engaged in and you act out in an inappropriate way, perhaps there's something more we can understand about that, so that the next time maybe we have a different interaction. And so that's just one broad concept that we're going to be working on in the next few years. One of the things that I've been doing as the director since I started as the director is trying to focus more on the front end of the system, on probation, and on people who are involved at sort of the lower end of the justice system. And how can we work to develop more interventions and more opportunities to help people locally, so that they don't end up coming to prison, so we can turn them around before they get to the prison door. Because when we do that, we're having the greatest impact of all, because we're keeping families intact and we're keeping people employed and all of those things. But yeah, I think there's more and more evidence that speaks to treatment and the impacts of treatment at earlier stages in the process. So we should absolutely be continuing to explore and invest in more treatment options for people. Well, I think this topic of bail reform is a national topic. It's being discussed everywhere, and including in Michigan. And I think it's a topic that's ripe for discussion. So, the Department of Corrections doesn't really have, isn't a big player in that, because we're obviously, the majority of what we do is not touching that. But no, I think, we all want a justice system that is fair and equitable for all people. And I'm glad to see that there is discussion around this topic, and I think we're going to see some progress on it.